12 from PSB11. Most kids couldn't wait for the end of October and filled their dreams with Halloween candy. I couldn't wait for the last week of October because of my birthday. I tried to reach midnight with my eyes wide open so I would know when I turned 12. 12 was worth staying up for. 6 different numbers went into 12. There were 12 days of Christmas, although we only celebrated Christmas Eve and Christmas Day. 12 was equal to 1 dozen, and a dozen was a good amount for Oreos, but not so good if you were on the losing side of throwing down the dozens on the playground. I'd lost a round of dozens to Danny the K last year when I'd said, "Yo, mama," and he said, "You don't have a mama." Oh, sorry, y'all. I tried to stand him up at best as I could, but he got to me, and all I could say was, "So?" Some things were so good to add on when you turned 12, and some things were good to leave behind, like playing the dozens in the schoolyard. I tried hard to stay up, but Papa knew I'd turned 12 before I did. Either late Friday night or early Saturday morning, he placed my birthday money and my allowance on my dresser next to my talcum powder and my Timex. $6.50. I hoped a card from Cecile would arrive on my birthday, a made-up card with a Turning 12 by Nazilla poem printed on it that Big Ma would roll her eyes at. I wouldn't have minded if it came without birthday money. I just wanted it to come. I wanted to know what she thought about me turning 12. I just didn't want to be propped in the window watching for the mailman the way Big Ma used to wait on letters from Uncle Darnell. My sisters and I walked down to the candy store on Fulton without Uncle Darnell. I promised to spend some birthday money on them and to contribute to our Jackson 5 concert savings. That was enough to keep them happy. Vonetta surprised me by saying, "Not too much money, Delphine. We don't need candy. We need $13 more for the concert at Madison Square Garden." Fern was quietly confused. She didn't dot Vonetta's words with agreement like always. A bag filled with wax lips, Jolly Ranchers, and pixie sticks was the very thing that made Fern skip to the candy store. She loved her little Michael Jackson, but she hadn't figured on giving up so much to see him. I hated to admit it, but I was looking at a whole new Vonetta. She was determined to be the best saver imaginable, determined to see her precious Jermaine and Marlon in person, and determined to prove me wrong about her being irresponsible. Normally I'd poke fun at her, but she was doing so well, and I didn't want to be the mean giant that she wished was dead. Fern yanked my jacket and said, "You'll get us some candy, right, Delphine?" "Yeah," I said. Across the street, I saw Ellis Carter and Danny the K kicking a soda can. They wore their baseball shirts and were on their way to the stadium at St. Andrew's Playground. Danny the K poked Ellis, but Ellis pretended not to feel it. They must have seen me across the street with my sisters. I turned into the candy store if I hadn't seen them. While Vonetta and Fern charged to the counter lined with fish bowls of penny candy, I stood at the door and watched Danny K push Ellis into the street and almost into a car. Tall and dopey, Ellis flapped his arms like a bird and hopped back onto the sidewalk. He slugged the K, and the K laughed and danced around him. Before they could catch me watching them clowning around, I found the magazine rack. I refused to look at highlights for children because I was now 12. Instead, I planted myself before the 14 magazines that Mr. Mack's candy store carried: 17, Teen, Young Miss, and Tiger Beat. Magazines that talked about first dates, the right clothes, teenage TV stars, singing groups, and acne cream, although I didn't have a need for acne cream. In the lower right-hand corner of the Tiger Beat cover was a small photograph of Michael Jackson's face. I grabbed the magazine and thumbed through the pages, searching for the Jackson 5, something we'd all enjoy. Vonetta would change her tune about spending money if there was a big enough picture of Jermaine and Marlon. I leaped past the pages of TV stars, rock and roll groups, and pop idols. At last, at the back of the magazine, I found a single black and white snapshot of Michael, but no Jackie or Tito, not even Jermaine or Marlon. Michael was fine for my sisters, but I was 12 and tall. I wanted a picture of Jackie or one of Tito playing his guitar. Vonetta was right. If we wanted to see Jackie, Tito, Jermaine, Marlon, and Michael, we'd have to save our money for tickets to Madison Square Garden. I shoved Tiger Beat back in its spot and picked up 17 and fanned through it. Not one article about how to hot comb without wearing that smoky hot comb smell to school. When I paid for Vonetta and Fern's candy, The store owner, who'd been selling me pencils, pens, writing pads, envelopes, and erasers since I don't know when, said, "Ought to charge you for reading my magazines." "You can't charge her for reading your magazines," Vonetta said. "It's her birthday." I wasn't about to let Vonetta come to my rescue. 12, I said. "I didn't read, I looked." And then Oakland added, "When there's afros and black faces on the cover, I'll buy one." "Power to the people," my sister said. "Free candy," Fern added instead of free Huey. When we came home, there wasn't any mail at all from Oakland. Wishing for a card from Hirohito would have been like wishing for make-believe. How would he have known it was my birthday? How would he have known where to send a birthday card? But I expected a card from Cecile. Even though I'd lost a round of dozens to Danny K, my mother wasn't make-believe. She was real, and she knew where to send my birthday card. At least Big Ma had the house smelling like barbecued chicken and lemon cake, enough to drown out the good for us stink of mustard greens. I threw my arms around Big Ma, happy that we'd be eating barbecue in late October when Big Ma only smoked and barbecued meat in the summer. Big Ma pushed me off of her and said, "Go on and wash up so you can help me with this mixing bowl." I had to race my sister to the bathroom, but Fern managed to squeeze past Vonetta and me. "It's my cake batter," I said. "I get the first lick." "Not if I beat you," Fern said. "Surely won't," I said, pushing her away from the sink. "I'll beat you both," said Vonetta, and just dashed her hands on top of ours in the sink, swiped them on the towel, and ran. "Stop that clunking," Big Ma hollered. And when all three of us stood before her, grinning and ready to lick the bowl, she declared us a bunch of wild hyenas running loose in the jungle. I took the wooden spoon. Vonetta and Fern used their fingers. Every now and again, I'd check the window to see if the special delivery mail truck had rolled up to our house, and then I stopped checking. That night, we had more of a birthday celebration than I was used to. Uncle Darnell seemed like his dimpled, jokey self, like he wasn't war-tired and he hadn't had a fitful night. He put Fern on his feet and danced around with her, although she had grown since he last whirled her around while Nat King Cole sang. He said he might have a job at the post office, just waiting on a call. That made Pa happy, but honestly, Pa was happy to have his Miss Marva Hendricks sitting next to him, flashing her perfect teeth. Everyone sang the regular birthday song to me, and then my sisters and I sang our version just before the wishing cake cutting began. Happy birthday, eat cake, leave the room for ice cream too. Happy birthday, eat cake, leave the room for ice cream too. Happy birthday, Delphine, happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, eat cake, leave room for ice cream too. Our birthday song was easier and snappier to sing than Happy Birthday Song. We sang at parties and in school, and you could do the cool jerk while singing it. Then all of us were dancing except for Big Ma, who yelled, "Cut this cake before the candles melt all over it." Uncle Darnell said, "Make a wish." There was a world of wishes, but I knew the one I wanted. And I knew it couldn't be, not even if it was my birthday. I knew my mother would never be here, that my mother and father would never make our house happy together. Knowing these things came with having 12 candles to blow out, plus one extra candle to grow one. "I want to see the Jackson 5 at Madison Square Garden," I said. Then I gave Vonetta my $5 bill. I didn't pass it under the table. I gave it to her so Miss Marva Hendricks could see. Vonetta ran to her room, got the mummy jar, and pushed the $5 bill down in the slot. "You just want to see Jackie Jackson at the Madison Square Garden." "And Tito," Fern said. Uncle Darnell leaned over and said, "Is that who you're digging on? Jackie Jackson and Tito?" I knew my uncle was back to being himself, dimples and jokey. I felt warm, but I refused to sink my face down, embarrassed like I could have been back when I was 11. I said, "Yeah, I like Jackie and Tito." "Only one you should like is your pa, Big Ma said, "and your uncle." "Band of singing hoodlum boys," Papa joked. I knew my father. He'd only half joked about the Jackson 5. Sure he didn't appreciate Vonetta, Fern, and me screaming over a group of boys, no matter who they were. Miss Marva Hendricks must have known Pa almost as well as I did. She felt sorry for him and took his hand. That night, Fern got out of her bed. She had been tucked in and came to my room. While I was in the middle of reading Johnny Tremain, You weren't supposed to tell your wish, Delphine. She stood there with her tiny fists balled and banging at her sides. To her, I had broken the rules on wishing. To her, it was serious. Fern still believed in all those things. I told her to go to bed. I sounded grown.